Cope Queens, Episode 3, Strong Black Woman Syndrome. This is the third episode in our 8-part series, Black and Depressed. In this episode, we explore the traits often used to define a strong Black woman and how these expectations affect one's mental well-being.
You're listening to the Cope Queens podcast, where every Wednesday, co-hosts Elaina and Tracy Hampton challenges mental health stigmas through sharing personal experiences, storytelling, interviews, and roundtable discussions about everyday life challenges. This podcast in no way is a replacement for mental health treatment. To learn more, please visit copequeens.com. Now, without further ado, let's cope together. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Cope Queens. Today we are focusing on the strong Black woman syndrome and what that means, what the benefits of being a strong Black woman are, as well as what are some of the consequences and the weight and how it links to our mental health and creates anxiety and feelings of overwhelmment and depression. We'll also share a conversation that we had with the crew over at the Hope Warrior Project. So we'll go ahead and get started. So Tracy, when you think about what defines a strong Black woman, what are some of the traits that come to mind?
I automatically just think about a woman who does it all. I think about a woman who pretty much goes to the point where at times she's sacrificing herself, not really engaging in that self-care that's so important, but just making sure that she's there and just providing for everyone. I really relate to this topic because a lot of times I'm one of those people, I hate asking for help. And I would rather take on the world before I reach out and ask someone to help me. So I often think about a person who is juggling a million and one things, but doesn't feel like life is normal if they're not juggling a million and one things.
When I think about strong Black women, the expectation, even being identified or labeled as a strong Black woman, it's a badge of honor. And it's almost a curse at the same time. When we say strong Black woman, we're talking about the woman who is expected to juggle multiple roles: the mother, the wife, the lover, the student, the friend, the therapist. And that can take a lot. And you are absolutely correct. We are expected to be self-reliant, self-contained, and we're expected to be self-sacrificing in a sense, meaning we put everyone else's needs above our own. And we keep going even when we know we need to stop. And I think that feeling of not being able to share with others as far as how we're feeling is because of that self-containment expectation, right? You keep those negative thoughts and feelings and those self-doubts to yourself because things have to get done and people are relying on you because you're not going to be perceived as a strong Black woman if you're not dependable. And that carries a lot of weight and it's a lot of expectations. And in some cases, when we talk about roles, we have women out there that not only have to be mother, but they have to be father.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think even, Elaina, when I think about those times where I had that whole strong Black woman syndrome going on, and you mentioned the whole badge of honor, I always looked at it as a badge of honor. It was something that I bragged on, that I was able to do this, I was able to do that, and I didn't need anyone to help me to do this, that, and the other. I don't think it was until I had a breakdown. It was at that point where you just finally feel like you're reaching your breaking point because you have nothing else to give to anyone. I had finally reached that point where I had to really admit I can't do everything. I can't do everything and still be there for myself and give myself what I needed. And I think that's something that a lot of women, they struggle with and they may not even realize it until they have that breakdown or that come to Jesus meeting with someone where it's like, look, I can't do anything else.
Yeah. And that's the only if that breakdown ever comes. I think for some women, it doesn't come in a sense of how like you and I would view a breakdown. My breakdown is depression. And I know what those signs are for myself. And I want to get better at recognizing the signs earlier to avoid the depression, because then that only just makes situations worse. Part of the issue, those closest to us don't recognize when we're going through something because they look at us as being able to handle whatever comes our way. And so they don't really worry about us. We don't really feel that emotional support. I know for myself, I feel alone. I feel like I have to handle this on my own because everyone is depending on me to just get it done. I've created this persona and I've put on this brave face, and there are times that I've pretended to be happy and pretended to be okay. So I've trained them to not worry about me.
I'm so glad you pointed that out, Elaina, that breakdown may not look the same for everyone, or that breaking point, if that breaking point is ever reached, it may look different. Because you look at some women that maybe they come to the point where they're so used to doing everything. And when you have a woman that's doing everything and they're carrying everything and they're not giving that 100% to things, or even giving to the capacity they want to, that's where I think a lot of that negative self-talk comes in, because they're disappointed because they're not able to give the way that they would want or the way they feel that they should. But in reality, it's because you're juggling 10 balls. You can't possibly give 100% to all 10 of those balls. So that breakdown for that person may just be that negative self-talk and constantly beating themselves up because they're not living up to their own expectations.
My mother and I were just having a conversation the other day because we were talking about the negative self-talk, and I said that I've named her anxiety. And it's this voice that goes off in my head. And I've had other choice words for this heifer. My mom cracked up laughing because she was like, oh my goodness, we're the same person, because she has that same voice. And it's the voice that tells you you're not doing enough. And it's the voice that tells you that what you are doing, you're not doing it well enough. And you need to do better and you need to do more. And I'm going to tell you this, that heifer has to learn to just back up off me sometimes, because I feel like I'm giving all that I can and I don't need any more pressure. I will have a sidebar conversation with anxiety and let her know, like, look, I need you to stand down because you are working my last nerve.
I love the way you confront them. Look, heifer.
Look, heifer, not today.
Not heifer.
Heifer. Not heifer. Heifer. That's right.
I love it.
That heifer got to take a couple of seats, and leave me alone. I have conversations with her because I think that we are all anxious and have anxiety in some ways. I do put a lot of pressure on myself. When I think about just growing up and seeing the women around me, my mother worked full time. There was a point where she worked 2 jobs. I never saw her falter. I'm sure she had those moments where she felt weak and vulnerable and like she wanted to give up, but I never saw that. Even when I think about my father's mother, who did not have the easiest life. When I think about my grandmother, I always heard her singing. I saw the strength in them, and I think I internalized that that was something that I aspired to be, somebody that could handle whatever came my way, no matter what. I was going to be resilient and I was going to get through it, and it didn't matter.
And I think that's something that we as women, especially women of color, I think a lot of times it's something that we see from our moms or we see from our grandmothers, just how they carry the world on their shoulders and they keep moving forward. And we never see that point of weakness. I know with my mom, she used to work in the medical field. So she would work at night. She'd come home from work early in the morning before we went to school. She'd have breakfast ready. She was there doing homework. I mean, everything, where now looking back, I'm like, when did this woman sleep? Yeah. And how did she have time to make my sister? So it's like, it's like we see them just really going above and beyond and carrying on. And we kind of feel like that's what we need to do, or that's the normal way of functioning.
Yeah.
So it is something that we do observe, and I think it carries on from generation to generation.
It takes strength to be vulnerable. It takes strength to ask for help. And even as I think about my daughter and being that example for her, I absolutely want her to be strong and independent and self-reliant. But I also want her to understand her limits and recognize that when she needs help, that it's okay to
Hmm.
ask for help. It's okay to seek guidance. Those things are okay. Those things show that you are strong and you are showing strength in those moments.
We have to look at ourselves as human beings, period. We're multifaceted. We're going to strength, we're going to be strong, but we're also vulnerable, and it's okay to be vulnerable. We're also, there's so many different parts to us, and I think it's learning to be okay with each of those parts,
Yes.
where it's okay to be strong, but when you feel like you need help or you feel like it's time to be vulnerable, it's okay accepting all of those different parts to ourselves.
Yes.
So I love what you said about your daughter, because that's one thing that I am trying to work on with my daughter as well. Just making sure that she realizes that it's okay for her to be her, and hope that the cycle doesn't continue where she sees me. Because I'm not going to lie, I still have my moments where I'm still trying to be all for everyone and do all. But I think self-awareness is so very important. Just being aware when I find myself going down that road, and just allowing myself that time to kind of be vulnerable, ask for help, and just reach out when I feel I need to.
You and I've had conversations about saying no and setting
Yes.
boundaries. I will say no in a heartbeat, and I don't feel
Mhm.
like I need to justify.
I think that just goes into some of the ways that we can kind of cope with those moments of being that strong Black woman, setting those boundaries and learning to say no. And it's something that's evolved for me the older I've gotten. When I was younger, it was something that I struggled with, because I wanted to be that good person and I wanted to be there for everyone and do whatever I could. I felt like it was selfish. If I had extra time, it's selfish for me to say no to someone when they need me to do something. As I've gotten older, I'm comfortable with saying no. What I will say the change is, before, if I did say no, I always felt like I had to have that explanation to say I can't because of blah, blah, blah. Now it's to the point, if you're close to me, if it's a family member, if it's someone that I feel like I have an intimate relationship where I do really care about the person, I will provide that reason why I'm saying no. And I'll keep it totally transparent with them. You and I've had those conversations
Yes.
before where I'm like, look, Elaina, I can't take on anymore. But if it's someone I don't have that relationship with and I really don't care, then it's no. And
Yeah.
if we're not that tight to begin with, they won't ask, and I'm okay with that. I think as you grow older, and everyone's different, everyone has their own personalities, it is something that you just have to be comfortable with. Saying no, setting those boundaries, identifying what your boundaries are, because a lot of times we don't
We
know
don't
what our
know.
boundaries are until someone crosses them.
Yes.
So learning what our boundaries are, being okay with saying no, all of those things help us as we try to take care of ourselves.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point about taking care of ourselves. One thing that I've had to learn is self-care. I'll put myself on a timeout. So even if that means I just go into my bedroom and turn on my essential lavender oil lamp and whatever that means, and if I just take a few minutes to inhale and exhale, and just 5 minutes to block the world out and not focus on anything that I need to do or something that someone wants from me, then that's what I just need to do. And I think it's just so important that we remember, one of the things that I talk to my mom about a lot is depleting your bucket and filling your bucket. And basically what that means is you have these buckets where you give your energy and your time and your effort and pieces of who you are to take care of others. But
Mm-hmm.
what happens is as that bucket's energy depletes, you're losing that for yourself. And so if you don't do things for yourself, then you're not keeping your bucket filled. I tell my mom all the time is you have to take time for yourself and do things that you enjoy that have nothing to do with anyone else. We talked before about, yes, I will color. That's just my moment to just get out of my head. I'll enjoy my glass of wine. I'll enjoy just listening to music. Tonight when I was cooking dinner, I had Alexa play Uptown Girl by Billy Joel. I had Alexa play Pour Some Sugar on Me by Def Leppard. Because those are just things that kind of remind me of my childhood and things that I've experienced and just got me out of my head of everything that's happened from the work days so I could just enjoy dancing around the kitchen. My dog and my cat, my daughter was upstairs. She hides in those moments. But the dog and cat looking at me like, girl, what are you doing?
I love that though, Elaina. And it is something, that's one thing I think we share. That's one of my coping mechanisms is the whole dance thing. I'll get when I feel like I'm stressed out and I just can't take anymore. I will turn on some music really loud and Maya and I will dance until we just fall out laughing. So doing those things that really help you and kind of, like you said, fill your bucket, which I love. I'm putting that on my wall. I think those are things that are really important when it comes to that self-care piece. Even with, you think about positive affirmations, thinking of that whole phrase, filling your bucket. Like anybody that knows me knows that I'm the queen of positive affirmations. When I first started Instagram, I think my whole Instagram was nothing but these positivity quotes, just things that I wanted to remember. I have them all over my office, and again, everyone's different.
Yes.
But for me, those are the things that kind of fill me up when I feel like I'm down, if I feel like I'm stressed, I feel like I have too much on my back. The positive affirmation, reading a motivational quote, things like that, they really help me out and help me to really reflect on what I'm feeling at the moment. That's something else that I think is really helpful when you really want to incorporate that self-care.
I'm also a fan of positive affirmations, and I have a few in my office as well. When you look around your office, what's one that stands out to you in this moment?
The one that I read on a constant basis is more of a quote than a positive affirmation, but it's nothing ever goes away until it teaches us what we need to know.
Oh.
It just really spoke to me because I'm a person that notices patterns, and I noticed in my life there's certain patterns I continue to repeat. And sometimes I'm like, Lord, why am I always here? Different characters, same act. And when I read that, it just spoke to me. I'm looking at it. Okay, Tracy, you still haven't learned what it is you're supposed to learn from this. So now I'm looking at it from the viewpoint, okay, what's different about this situation? What's the same? And I'm analyzing the situations now, but I really love that quote.
One of the quotes that I have in my office is watch your thoughts, for they become your words. Watch your words, for they become your actions. Watch your actions, because they become your habits. Watch your habits, for they become your character. Watch your character, for it becomes your destiny.
I believe that 1,000%. And I have read the quote before, and that's another one that speaks to me. I see why we're friends.
All right, everybody. We're going to share the conversation we had with the Hope Warrior Project. The Hope Warrior Project is a community that helps women identify their strengths. And they create this togetherness, and they have this fabulous Hope Warrior Academy where they go through different books and connect it to their lives and just learn different strategies of coping with life and being vulnerable. One theme I took away from my conversation with them that helped me in my mindset and perspective was becoming a warrior of hope, not for just others, but for yourself and what that looks like. They're doing a really great job in what they've started. We're going to share part of that conversation. And if you want to hear the full conversation with them, head over to copequeens.com.
I have a joke. We're a really small gang of hope dealers. You'll find I like to be funny sometimes. But I think kind of in a nutshell, we try to really facilitate hope by providing people with tools and resources to encourage not only themselves, but encourage others. That's just kind of like the little short in a nutshell what it is. It's really interesting, I think, how it got started. And so Lydia has a great story about that.
Okay.
I believe that Hope Warrior was kind of given to us. It is something that comes out of my personal story. And I met Stephanie while I was figuring out what Hope Warrior exactly was. I was going through life checking off things on my list, things that I thought I was supposed to do, what society was encouraging me to do, what my family was encouraging me to do. And I wasn't really being truly honest with myself. College, job, baby, husband, house, whatever. I guess not in that order, but I had an order, a very specific order, and when I thought things were supposed to be done by. And I was checking them off my list. And from everybody's perspective on the outside, probably thought I had it all together and everything was going according to plan and that I was happy. But on the inside, I was very unhappy and unfulfilled, and I didn't know why. So I just kind of kept chugging along and ignoring it, just kind of in denial until I couldn't avoid it anymore, because all those plans that I made kind of fell apart. And I was dealing with a situation where my husband wanted out of the marriage because he had met someone else, and I was pregnant with my second child. We had to abandon our house, and it was just really a dark, dark time in my life that I was completely blindsided. Of course, now hindsight's 2020. I was completely blindsided because I was in just a completely different mindset and headspace that I was just not living like true to myself, which is what I think caused a lot of the things that happened in my life. I found myself in my childhood room with my infant and my daughter in my brother's old room, and I was just so confused. How did I get here? And I got really super curious about who I was, because I just felt lost. I felt like I didn't know who I was anymore, because everything was so different in such a short amount of time. I really just started tapping into podcasts, sermons, books, and I started to learn from people's stories, people that were vulnerable enough to go out there and share their stories of overcoming or of trauma or whatever the case may be. And other people's stories just really, really gave me hope. And that's kind of where Hope Warrior started to make its way into my life, because the more I tapped into other people, the more hope I was able to find for myself. And then as my life started to reform and transform into what it is today, and being able to work things out with my husband and save my family. And we're so incredibly happy now because we both have this mindset of working on ourselves to be better individuals so that we could be better together. So that just really inspired me to do the same thing for other people. I started to look for these opportunities to share my story and encourage other people. And I was talking with a friend who was actually going through a divorce, and she was just in a really difficult place. I know how difficult that place is because I was on the brink of it, signing papers and everything. And I told her, if you ever just need encouragement or you need to vent or whatever the case may be, or if you want to hear more about my story, I'm here for you because I'm a hope warrior. And when I said those words, I honestly felt really silly because it's just not something I would ever say. And it didn't feel like it came from me. It just slipped out of my mouth. And even after I said it, we kind of looked at each other like that was awkward. I said it and then I couldn't get it off my mind. It felt divine. It felt like something special. It felt powerful.
Lydia and I trying to share things that we've been through. For myself, I've struggled with infertility. And that was really, really hard for me because all my friends were getting pregnant and having babies. And I always thought, well, like, is it going to happen for me? And then you would hear the success stories of people who went through fertility treatments and then it worked. So everybody's like, oh, just, go have this done. Go, have this procedure done. You'll have a baby. Well, that wasn't my story. I did go through fertility treatments. I did go through all of that, taking all the hormones and making me crazy and all the things of that nature. But we were never successful in being able to have a child. And so my story, I can still have hope that even though that dream of mine didn't come true, that I still enjoy my life. It took me it was a process for me to go through to accept that my life is still good, even though this dream that I had didn't come true. And so I think that's another thing. A lot of times we'll see the positive results of certain things of that nature. And then if that doesn't happen to us, then we can lose hope. But there is other ways to have hope, even when things that we really, really wanted in life don't happen. There's hope there too. That's one of the things that I feel like I really want to help people in those situations, because I've been through it myself.
If you want to hear the full conversation, please visit copequeens.com. Remember that as women, no matter what our race or ethnicity is, we carry the weight of the world on our shoulders, and we have a lot of people dependent on us. Sometimes a great place to be in, but it comes with so many expectations, and some are very unrealistic, and we put a lot of pressure on ourselves. And we have to take a step back, and we have to accept the reality of who we are as human beings and what our limitations are. And we have to learn how to put our needs first, because if we're not filling our buckets, then we're not going to be able to give to others, and the things that we're trying to accomplish, we're not going to see the results that we're trying to obtain if we're not taking care of ourselves. If you want to learn more about the Hope Warrior Project, visit hopewarriorproject.com, and you can also find them on Facebook and Instagram.
You've reached the end of another episode of the Cope Queens podcast. Thank you for coping with us today, and we hope you'll join us for the next episode. Until then, connect with us on Twitter at Cope Queens.